I want to introduce you to Mr. C.J. Grisham. C.J. is on the line. How are you, C.J.?
Hey, I'm doing great, Paul. How are you this morning?
I'm doing fantastic. It's great to talk to you, sir. The group, now you are with Open Carry Texas, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I wanted to, we'll go ahead and put that website up on the screen during the portion of the interview. I wanted you to tell your story today. I've already kind of teased it with our audience about, hey, are you willing to be civilly disobedient and even get arrested for your liberty and for the liberty of others? And I think a lot of us might be like, no, I got to go to work tomorrow, man. I got to put food on the table. But you not so much, sir. I want you to start from the beginning and tell us about your activism and how this all started for you.
Well, I was raised to love liberty. I remember growing up in the 80s and my dad taking me to concerts to fight against the PMRC, which was Tipper Gore's group that was trying to censor music and other media. And so we would go to concerts and we would sell T-shirts and try to get people activated in the election so that we could prevent that kind of stuff. So I've always believed in liberty. And then I joined the Army back in 1994 and served 21 years. And that oath meant something to me, to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. It wasn't something that was just a rite of passage. And so it's something I've always believed in is the Constitution of the United States and what it stands for and our founding principles. And back in 2013, wasn't doing anything spectacular or special. I was out on a hike with my son, helping him earn his Eagle Scout merit, his Eagle Scout ranking. All he had to do was get a hiking merit badge. That was the last thing he had to do for his requirements, other than his project. And I live out in the country in the middle of Texas. So we're out walking, like I always do. Anytime I'm walking around, I've always got my rifle on me. But this particular day, someone decided they were going to call the police, and a police officer showed up, and he didn't have his lights on, didn't announce himself or anything like that. He just walked up, and he says, hey, what are you doing? I said, oh, we're hiking. And he walks up to me, and he grabs my rifle that I was carrying for self-defense. Again, we have hogs and other wild animals out here. And he says, there's some reason why you've got this? And there was a weird question for me because it threw me off. I always carry this thing. Every one of our tractors and trucks has a rifle in it. I carry an AR-15. That's my rifle. And I said, because I can? Kind of in a weird questioning way. He's like, oh, okay. And he starts to take off my rifle. Well, again, I'm a combat veteran. You don't just grab someone's rifle without announcing yourself. So I grabbed my rifle as well, and I said, whoa, you're not going to disarm me. Well, at that point, I ended up with a gun to my head and thrown onto the hood of a police car. Turned on my camera because I realized, okay, this isn't right. So I turned on my camera and started filming. That film, or that video, went viral of that arrest. I was arrested for resisting arrest, but there was no charge underlying it. And so what they did was they just kept changing the charges until they got something that would stick. Well, that incident started Open Carry Texas because I realized we have problems in the state of Texas as it relates to gun rights.
Yes.
And the fact that police think they can just walk all over you.
And at the time, the open carry laws in Texas had to do with rifles only. Is that correct?
Right, yeah. We were, at the time, we were one of only 6 states that did not allow open carry of handguns. Wow.
Okay, so...
A lot of people think we're a very pro-gun state, but we weren't.
So you started to release... Every time the government was making their argument, you released a section of your video that proved them wrong. And eventually the government said, we need to, put a gag order on everything? Tell us about that.
Right. So the police were talking to the media as this arrest kind of started getting a lot of attention. The police were telling the media, oh, it's not what CJ's saying. They would put something out there that was a complete and bogus lie. So I would release a small little 30-second clip from the video that says, no, it's not a lie. Look, here's the proof. And I would give that to the media. And then they would say something else, and I would give that another 30. And so I did this 3 times. 3 times I called out the police department for lying to the people. And after that, the prosecutors, because I was still waiting on my case, it took me about 10 months to get to court. And finally they went to the judge and said, hey, we want to get a gag order. So my attorney came to me and says, hey, CJ, they're going to put a gag order on your video. I was like, well, they can't put a gag order on something that's released. So I just released the entire video, and I encouraged gun owners. I put it in gun groups, on Facebook, on everywhere. And I said, look, download this video, put it on your channel. I don't care what you do with it. Just get it out there because they're trying to hide the truth. And that's how it went viral.
Wow. And so, but eventually they got you. Essentially, and I love law enforcement. I think law enforcement, they do a great job. Unfortunately, sometimes when it comes to guns especially, there's a mentality law enforcement doesn't believe that an armed society is a polite society, and they come up to a guy like you, CJ, and they're like, well, you may beat the charge, but you're not going to beat the ride. That seems to be what they tried to do to you.
That's exactly what they did to me. That's why they kept changing it. I was eventually convicted for interference, which in Texas is so broad that, I mean, literally if a police officer comes up and says, drop your drawers, and you say no, that's interference. So it's a Class B misdemeanor. It'll be on my record forever because of the sham trial. They brought up an anti-gun liberal judge out of Houston all the way up here to Central Texas because no one in my county would take the case, no judges. And so they went judge shopping and found one that would do what they wanted to do.
Wow. So all to prove this point. Okay, so what happened after that? Because I understand this like you said, it sparked Open Carry Texas, and it got more people involved, but that wasn't the end of,
No.
or the arrests and things like that.
Yeah, so I went to the NRA after my arrest, and I says, look, we need to do something about open carry in the state. We're one of only 6 states that doesn't allow the open carry of a handgun. I can walk anywhere with my rifle. And the NRA told me no one cares about open carry.
Of course they do.
And that's why, another reason why Open Carry Texas was started. So we decided, okay, well then we'll play it our way. And what we decided to do, and many people probably remember the stories from 2013 and 14 of all the rifle-toting Texans that are walking all over the place into Home Depot and Hardee's carrying their rifles. And the purpose of that was to get the legislature in the state to realize this is legal, but if you see my itty-bitty .380 pistol, then I'm a criminal. Mm-hmm. And what happened was we got more arrests. By November, we had already had 19 arrests. And so a bunch of veterans got together on Veterans Day, went up to the Capitol in Austin, and decided we were going to protest the fact that law enforcement was arresting law-abiding citizens for no other reason than ignorance. And we were going to try and raise awareness at the Capitol of that fact. And so I got about 32 veterans together, and we just marched to the Capitol. Well, while we were at the Capitol, literally as we were getting ready to start speaking, the Capitol DPS troopers came up and told us we had to leave. Again, 19 arrests in the state for lawful activities. All charges were dropped against all 19 of them, but that didn't stop them from having to bail out and go to jail. Well, I refused to leave because I wasn't breaking any laws, and I demanded to know why am I being told to leave? What law am I breaking? And it was all about, I'm telling you to leave now. And I said, well, why? What law am I breaking? I'm telling you to leave. I ended up, again, getting arrested for criminal trespassing. And so they just made up a law. I was where I was allowed to be doing illegal activity, and they decided to arrest me for criminal trespassing. Then, that was in November. That took me a year to get those charges dropped. I went to court every month only to be reset, and finally those charges were dropped. And again, it was resisting arrest was the second charge, because I'm not going to allow anybody to unlawfully arrest me. I'm going to fight back, and that's what caused me to get all these resisting arrests. All three of my arrests from 2013 to 2018 were all with resisting arrest, and then they had a whole bunch of other stuff added to it.
Wow.
Last year I got arrested again because we were protesting a police department that was actually drawing down. If somebody called the police because somebody was open carrying a handgun, they would arrive on the scene. And these were our activists. This was Open Carry Texas, not doing anything. We don't do anything against the law. We're very peaceful. We're not in your face. We don't shove things. Even when we took our rifles into businesses back in 2013 and 14, we always got permission from the business first. And yet people still would call the police. So we were always very respectful of the public. And I was in Olmos Park, which is a San Antonio suburb. We were just standing on a street corner because we wanted to see, okay, is it true? It just seemed odd to us that someone would say that if you just open carry, the police are literally going to surround you with guns pointed at your head and order you on the ground. I just didn't believe it. So I went personally to San Antonio, and we did just that. And sure enough, the police arrived. They're pointing guns at us. They're ordering us on the ground. I had talked to the police chief the day before, and he assured me, no, that doesn't happen here.
Wow.
And then it happens to me. Well, then they try to arrest me again, and I'm like, no, you're not touching me. And so I'm backing up. I'm refusing to allow the officer to grab me so that he can put me in handcuffs. And I end up getting tased in the back by the police chief himself, the guy I had just spoken to 24 hours prior.
You're kidding me. Oh, my God.
No. And cracked my head open on the concrete when I landed because I stiffened up like a board and went flat back. I mean, I didn't have anything to stop my head from hitting the concrete. And blacked out. We're still dealing with migraine issues, and we're suing that police department. But that's just some of the, but after that, they changed their ordinances that were unlawful. They had an unlawful ordinance that prevented open carry of rifles in the city, but that violated state law, and that's what I had told the chief about, that your ordinance violates state law, so it's in effect, it's null. Nobody has to obey it because it's unlawful.
Gosh.
And then the city council repealed that after I got tased.
So at this point, we're talking with C.J. Grisham. You can go to OpenCarry, is opencarrytexas.org.
Yes, sir.
So C.J., I guess all of these events, I'm sure, made your group stronger, and then you actually were able to get the people's representatives, not necessarily the law enforcement, but the politicians in Texas, to make some changes to the laws. Tell us about that.
So our first legislative session, Texas meets only every 2 years in a legislative session, so they're not always screwing with our liberty. They're only doing it every 2 years. So 2015 was our first session. We were able to get open carry passed. We got campus carry on college universities passed. I was also a student at the time. I just retired from the Army. And so we got those two laws passed. We got a bunch of clarification laws passed this last session, and then this session got a few. We didn't get much this session at all. That was largely because of our representatives. But we're over 50,000 people strong. I think our biggest success is not necessarily the laws, although those are great that we got some major legislation passed. But we've gotten hundreds of businesses. We've encouraged them to take down their no gun signs by educating them on the statistics of law-abiding citizens who carry firearms. We've gotten government entities to stop violating the law by putting up signs and keeping guns out of government buildings. We've gotten local ordinances changed in dozens of cities that protect Texans' gun rights that used to go unopposed. A lot of these laws had been in place since the 90s or even earlier, and were just never challenged. And finally, here's a group that's coming around challenging them, and if they didn't change their ordinances, then we took them to court. We went to the Attorney General, and the Attorney General forced them to obey the law. And that's the power of our organization, is the people itself. We don't have any lobbyists. We don't have any paid members at all.
Wow.
What we do is we activate people who are willing to take a stand and do something for liberty instead of just throwing money at it.
And that's what it is. And I would imagine that the different members of your organization have the ears of their local politicians. You know what I mean? The more people you have spread out over Texas, and are they making relationships with their lawmakers, and does that seem to be the driving force?
It's kind of twofold. So with the lawmakers that we can have relationships with, yes, absolutely. We've got a really good reputation among lawmakers. We've also got a really bad reputation among those that don't like us. Mm-hmm. And so we get laws changed because people like us, and we get laws changed because if we don't change these laws, Open Carry Texas is going to hold a big rally here, and they're going to bring their guns. Let's avoid that. And so it's I'm okay with both ways. I'm okay with them being afraid of us, and I'm okay with them liking us and recognizing that we're doing the right thing.
Yeah. Can I ask you, again, we're talking with C.J. Grisham, can I ask you about about the NRA. You approach the NRA, they say, well, no one cares about open carry. That's not true. Here in Arkansas, we are a constitutional carry state now. We've got a law that was changed in 2013. We've got law enforcement that have been slow to get on board, but slowly they are. Then we had a court decision affirming that possession of a weapon in Arkansas is decriminalized, and
Right.
So it's really, really good. But can I ask you about the NRA? I mean, I know they've done some good things in the past, but it seems like they are. Let me just say, it seems like they think that regulation and infringement on the Second Amendment is going to happen, so they might as well be the ones that get to write the regulations. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, let me say first, I am a Patron Life member of the NRA, but I've given lots of money to the NRA, but I will never give them another penny. Here's what I have learned about the NRA just since the last 6 years that I've really, really been paying attention and actually doing something. The NRA is one of those organizations that they'll go to, this is my impression, they'll go to politicians and they'll say, okay, what are you going to give us this year? Oh, well, let's do this. Okay, then we'll fight for that. Instead of saying, looking at the landscape and going, okay, where are the infringements? Let's fight the infringements. So I think the NRA is more concerned with their relationship with politicians and their access to politicians than they are with actually fighting, which really annoys me because, again, as a Patron Life member, our bumper sticker is stand and fight. That's what the bumper sticker says when you get the NRA, and yet they don't stand and fight. They'll only fight for what the lawmakers will give them. This year we got nothing. Absolutely no expansion of liberty whatsoever this year, and the NRA is sending out emails saying what a successful session we had. Constitutional carry has died 3 sessions in a row. The NRA has done nothing but fight against it because they want to pass their little bills that the politicians have said, hey, this is what we're willing to pass this session. And instead of the NRA going, no, that's not good enough, they say, okay, we'll take that, and that's what we'll go ahead and fight for this year. And that way, because it's about access, they can protect the legislators' grades, and the legislators can continue to give them access. And there's going to be money involved in the form of endorsement. Mm-hmm. So for the first time this year, we're going to be giving grades to politicians. And it's going to be a completely different grading system than what the NRA does. The NRA picks and chooses bills. We don't. We put a whole list of every gun bill on our website, whether we oppose or support it, and that's what our grading system is on, whether it passed or not. And if you're a committee chair and these bills did not pass that we said were priorities, then your highest grade, no matter how pro-gun you are, your highest grade, if as a committee chair you killed this bill, is going to be a B. That's it. You automatically lose a letter grade. It's like missing 3 days of class in college. You automatically lose a letter grade if it's unexcused.
Wow. Yeah, man, and I think that's the kind of stuff that certainly gets their attention, and sometimes even more disdain. But, when it comes to this issue, I mean, people understand that they don't need to be disarmed. I think people understand the importance of protecting themselves, property, your natural right of self-defense, self-preservation. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. And I'm glad, I'm glad what you said about the NRA. I kind of feel that way as well. And I think also I would just add, there's also when you give, when you're too optimistic about what has happened, you send out those emails, what a successful session. That also incentivizes people to continue giving money because they think, they're doing something on my behalf when in reality that may not be the case. And I think. Oh no,
they fought against us.
Really?
No, they've actually fought against us for good bills. For example, a bill that would have protected open carriers from law enforcement harassment. Specifically, the NRA fought against because they also are in bed with the police lobby. And again, I've changed my stance. I come from a law enforcement background. I used to have absolute reverence for law enforcement. I don't. I have reverence for good cops, but I do not have reverence for law enforcement. And so I treat everyone the way that they treat me. If you come up to me with an attitude, you're going to get an attitude in return. That's a change in my life. I didn't used to be that way. I would always give respect, even when they were rude to me. Not anymore. I respect good cops, and I respect good cops only. But I can no longer respect the profession because I've seen what it does to liberty. And the NRA they bend over backwards for law enforcement, not for people.
CJ Grisham with Open Carry Texas, it's great to meet you. Thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for standing for liberty, sir. And I would love to have you on again sometime.
Yes, sir. Anytime. You've got my number, and you guys keep up the fight there in Arkansas. We followed y'all closely. As a matter of fact, when we were fighting for Open Carry, we went to the Texarkana, city of Texarkana, and we had people on the. We had a picture of people with pistols on the Arkansas side of the border and people with rifles on the Texas side of the border, showing the difference between the two.
That's fantastic. I love it. That's great. Well, yeah, maybe I can get a copy of that photo. I'd love to see that. So.
Sure, I'll send it to you.
All righty. Thank you, CJ. Appreciate it. Be safe. Folks, and this segment was brought to you by the Patriots VAC 746. They are on a mission to educate the people of Arkansas about constitutional carry. You do not need a permission slip to carry here in the state of Arkansas from the government, open or concealed. Firearms have been decriminalized. Now, that does not mean that you can carry into any business. You know, a private business can still put up a sign, say, no guns allowed. You got to respect that. Or you're subject to, prosecution or being asked to leave or whatever. But the bottom line is this. You got to get the word out, because this is about protecting you and your family, your property. A lot of people don't know. I mean, can you imagine if you think you have to have a permission slip, but you really don't, and then you're walking around unarmed, and something tragic happens and your neighbors didn't know the law, that they just didn't get around it? I don't want to carry today because I don't have a permission slip to carry. You don't need one. You don't need one.